Hello lovely yoga students and welcome to this video. So today we're focusing on the feet and ankles, and I'm going to invite you to have a belt, you might need one, and a couple of cushions or soft blocks, and possibly a thin blanket as well. So if you haven't got those, pause the video and go and get them. And today, this week, we're also looking at chapters 14 and 15 of the Bhagavad Gita that we've been just working with a little bit. And so chapter 14 is about the Gunas. If you don't know what those are, it's a good idea to look them up. I mean, just as a very, very, very simplified version, they are sattva, rajas and tamas. So sattva kind of means lightness, and rajas means kind of passion or something like that, and tamas is about dullness. So I mean there's so much more to them than that, but anyway we're looking at those. And we're also, because chapter 15 is also about it's almost like about divine intervention. So, you know, we're working with these three gunas, these three energies, and how basically they're the forces of life. But about that if we can tune into the divine that is kind of there and within us and all around us, that it can really help us to work with these three energies. So come and find yourself in a comfortable seat, ready, and we're going to begin by giving our feet a little bit of a massage. So just you might be on a chair or something, just get yourself in a position where you can bring your feet up into a place where you can touch them with your hands. And we're just going to gently just do whatever feels good, but just rubbing all of the toes and the bottoms of the feet all along there. I mean, you know, we so rarely, well, most of us anyway, me included, so rarely actually give our feet attention with our hands. And it's really good to do this. So just working with your hands, just, you know, spend a bit of time really loving your feet and giving them a bit of a massage. So probably in the lesson we'll spend a bit more time than this, but we're going to swap over and do the other one now. So just doing it how it works for you. And you know, it's good for the hands as well to be doing a bit of work. Massaging is actually, you know, it works the fingers a bit, so it's good for fingers and toes. Lovely. So when you feel like you've done that about the same on each side, we're then going to, I'm going to just turn around so you can see, we're going to come into just a Dandasana position here, staff pose. So just here with the toes moving towards the body, sitting up nice and straight. Being here for a moment and just feeling that sense. We did this the other week, so of having the feet moving towards the face. It really makes the legs work, but it goes all the way down, right down into the ankles. So you're going to do that for a bit, and then we're going to point the toes. So really pointing through the toes as much as you can. If you get a bit of cramp, like I'm getting, give the foot a bit of a wiggle. And then moving back again. So flexing and then pointing or extending. Flexing and pointing. Beautiful. So then we're going to circle the feet, the ankles, so just circling them round. One way, about 3 or 4 times, and then we're going to go back the other way. So of course this is for the feet, but of course actually this is working the whole of the legs. It's not just the feet at all. Beautiful. So then we're going to transition and come into all fours, because I always like to put a bit of cat and cow into my lessons, just because I think it's the best movement in the whole world for the body. So doing whatever you like with your toes, but you can tuck your toes if you like, inhaling, looking forwards, taking the spine to the floor, exhaling, taking the spine to the ceiling. Just working with a couple of breath cycles like this. And then we're going to, if your toes aren't tucked, then tuck them underneath, and we're going to come up into the dog. So sun ray fingers really spread wide, and then we're going to push back. So keeping the knees bent, pushing back into this shape here with the knees nice and bent. So I'm on my toes, and I'm going to just begin to just drop very gently. I'm not actually straightening that leg, I'm just pushing the heel down a little bit and then bending that one and doing that with the other one. So I'm not actually straightening right out because we're not warmed up properly yet. So I'm keeping both legs a little bit bent, but I'm just doing a little bit on the hamstrings, a little bit on the toes. And then from here we can come up to tiptoes, so coming right up onto the tiptoes. And then what we're going to do is get rid of your block if you've got one there, and just walk hands towards feet, feet towards hands. And we're going to come up into Uttanasana. So this is standing forward bend, dropping the head down, trying to, it's a lovely release in the low back. But what we're going to do is we're going to, if you can do this, if you can reach, we're going to put the hands underneath the feet like this. My legs are really bent, you can see. So if you can manage this, then do this. And then what you can do is you can use your feet now to massage your hands. So you did your hands massaging your feet. Now you're doing it the other way. If you don't reach like this, if it doesn't work for you, then you can just be wherever you are. Maybe have a block if your hands just don't come down, and just wiggle your toes up and down. So from here we're going to transition up to Tadasana. So here we are in Tadasana. I'm going to invite you to have a look down at your toes, at your feet. Just make sure that they're nice and square, pointing straight in front of you. It's always good to have a roll back with the shoulders just to make sure that you're standing up straight. So from here, we're going to just lift all the toes up, try and spread them out wide, and then drop them down. So what I'm trying to do is see if I can spread my toes as wide as possible, drop them down to the ground. So I'll do that again. So I'm actually taking my weight back onto the heels, lifting my toes up, spreading my toes really wide, and then dropping them down. Beautiful. So then from here, I'm going to just begin to roll my ankle around here on the ball of my foot. So I'm keeping my foot on the ground and I'm rolling around. So I'm actually taking this knee in big circles, and it's really working with my toes and my foot. And then I'm going to go back the other way, so back round. I've done a few circles outwards, now I'm doing some circles inwards. And then I'll do that on the other side. So working one way first, 3 or 4 times, and then back the other way. So I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going all the way up and over onto the toes and coming back. So it's exactly the same thing, only the roll goes all the way over the toes and back. It's a lot more intense, so just do what's right for you. And then back the other way, so going out over the little toe, back over. So I'm actually rolling right over onto the tops of the toes. And then coming back, doing it on the other side. Yeah, I can really feel it. It really stretches the muscles in the tops of my feet, which is good as well. And then back the other way. Okay. So we're going to do something slightly different. I'm just turning around so that you can see what we're going to do now. So from here, I'm still in Tadasana. I'm going to bend both of my knees, but keeping my torso standing up really nice and straight. Take my weight over onto one foot, so it doesn't really matter which one you do. And then I'm going to take the other foot back and put the top of the foot down. And from here, whoa, she says, nearly falling over. From here, I'm going to bend both knees and just really drop down, pressing the top of that foot down into the ground. I'm actually going to take my arms out to give me a little bit more balance here. And then I'm going to come back up and swap over and do it on the other side. So both knees are bent, taking that foot back, got the top of that foot down, and then bending a little bit more, pressing down into the top of that foot. It's quite intense. So I'm going to do that again, once each side. So bending both legs, taking that first foot back and dropping down. It is a bit of a balance, so you might want to have a chair if you're a bit wobbly. Going to the other side again. Beautiful. Lovely. So we're going to come back into Tadasana again, and this time what we're going to do is going to just very slightly. There's a very slight bend in the knees. It's more like just soft knees. I'm going to take my weight back into the heels, and then I'm going to try and lift my toes as far off the ground as I can and hold them there. So I can really, this is working the legs again as well, rather, it works the legs as well, but it's really working into the toes. I'm really trying to stretch them all up as high as I can, and then I'm going to very slowly drop the toes down again and try and press them into the ground. So I'm actually leaning a little bit forwards now, pressing them into the ground. Great. So from here now we're going to come up and do a couple of bits on tiptoes. So if you're really unsteady, you can always pause the video and get a chair, have a chair next to you to help you with your balance. But we're going to just raise up onto the tiptoes and see if you can stay there for a couple of breaths. It's quite intense. Oh, she says falling down. So we'll do that again. So raising up onto the tiptoes. And it's a really good thing to actually think of yourself being pulled up by a thread from the top of your head, or even right from your heart space up through the top of your head and then coming back down. Beautiful. So we'll just take a couple of lifts and rolls with the legs just to ease that out a little bit. So what we're going to do now is something slightly different. I'm going to get one of my blocks or cushions you might have, and I'm going to try it just with a cushion or a block first of all and see what that feels like. We're standing, if you can see that, I'm standing with the front half of my foot on the block. Now for me, it doesn't feel like much. I mean, I can feel it a bit, but it doesn't really feel like much. So I actually am putting my blanket on top of that. And when I do that now that feels more like it. I mean, I can actually feel, so I'm trying to stand up straight. Get yourself into a nice, comfortable position, so just the front of your foot is on the block. Now I can feel this stretching all the way from here, down the back of my legs, through the back of my ankles, and right under my feet. And I can feel that the front of my ankles as well are kind of something's happening in there. So we're just going to try and breathe here for a few breaths. So you might feel that you're wobbling a bit, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine to wobble. But we're trying to kind of generally sort of stay in the same place. So while you're standing here, trying to imagine yourself lifting up. So we're lifting up through the quads here. Beautiful. It's a lovely stretch in the back of the lower legs and ankles. Great. So we can come off there now. So we're going to come down into a squat now. So I'm going to invite you from your standing position to take your feet out a little bit wide and just see if you can just make your way down. We're coming into a squat with the feet raised. I know some people are very good at being like this with their feet, their heels down, but we're not actually doing that today. We're actually coming up like this onto toes. It's a bit far out for me, actually. I need to be a bit closer to be balanced here. And then from here, we're going to start to do a sort of wiggle. So I'm wriggling over, so I'm being able to put one heel down and then coming down the other way. I mean, I'm not that flexible in my ankles. In fact, I'm very inflexible in my ankles. So it might be that this is a lot easier for you. The invitation is to try and stay upright, whereas for me, I feel like I need to come forward because I haven't got the flexibility in my ankles. So just do what works for you. Okay. A few times. And then I'm going to invite you, if you want to bring a block to sit down. And we're going to sit back down here onto the block. And we're going to do something slightly different with the feet this time, with the hands and the feet. So before we were massaging, this time we're going to see if we can put the fingers in between the toes. I used to do this quite a lot and I got quite used to it, but I haven't been doing it recently and it's actually sort of almost slightly painful. So if you're used to it and it's something you do quite often, then go ahead. If it's really painful, then you can just do 2 at a time rather than trying to do them all. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I've got my fingers through my toes, and then I'm just going to try and just give them a little bit of a rock forwards and backwards. I'm using my toes to move my fingers and my fingers to use my toes. Move my toes. And we're going to try on the other side. So again, just using both hands to help the fingers to go in between the toes, just getting into as comfortable position as you can, and then we're just rocking the fingers and toes backwards and forwards. So it's a really good thing to do this every day. If you get into doing it every day, it's amazing how it really opens up the toes. And actually, just from doing that, I can feel my toes are really alive. They're really sattva, really light and alive. It's lovely. Okay, so from here, we're going to come into the hero pose. Now, this is no good for people who've got really dodgy knees, so I'm going to do it first and then I'll give you the modification for if kneeling isn't okay with you. But if it is okay, and you're good at kneeling, and you can come and just kneel straight back onto your heels here. This is really good because what it does is it really stretches out the tops of the feet. So if this feels good, then just stay there breathing. If it's too much and it feels really intense in between here, you can get your cushion or block and put it between your heels and your bottom. And I find this actually really comfortable. And what this does is this really, really helps me to kind of really root down into the tops of my feet. So you can sit here and breathe and be with what's happening for a few moments. But if kneeling just isn't your thing at all, then this is where you can have your belt. So if you've got a belt with you, then what you can do is you can come and lie down on your back, bringing your knees up into your chest like this. Get hold of your belt and take it right over the ends of your feet, just above your toes. And then from here, you can get hold of it as close as you can to your feet and then pull your feet towards you. Head down. So you're effectively, knees together, you're effectively doing exactly the same thing, only you're doing it on your back. So from this pose, we're going to move into another pose, which is like it, but it's a bit more intense. So if kneeling is really not your thing, then what you can do is stay here, open your feet so they're a bit wider than hip position, and then do the same thing. So see if you can pull them. In fact, you could either pull them so that you've got them so they're wider. Can you see what I'm doing? So that they're sort of about a little bit more than hip distance apart, and just keep them there. So that is the modified position of what we're going to do now. But if kneeling's okay for you, then what we're going to do is I'm going to do this with a block, and in fact I'm going to do it with a block and a cushion. So I've got the block on the mat here, and I'm going to come kneel in front of it like that, and then sit down onto it. Now this is kind of okay for me. I'm pulling the fleshy bit of my calves out so that what it is that my feet, rather than being under me now, they're to the side of me, right? And so what this does is it's really good for the tops of the feet, but it's also good for the knees and the legs if kneeling is okay for you. So if it's not, you're down on your back doing the modification. But if this feels okay, but it feels a bit much for me. I'm okay here, but after a while it would get a bit much. So I can get my blanket here, and I can just lift it up and put it under my bottom there. And that just raises me up a little bit more, gives me a little bit more lift, and it's a bit easier on my knees here, but I'm still getting this lovely stretch on the back of the foot, back of the toes. And then from here, with my thumbs, I'm going to lean back a little bit, and I can press my toes with my thumbs into the mat. It's a lovely feeling. Beautiful. And then if you're really supple and your knees really like it, you can come back here and just feel how this really opens up the front of the body. And it's also lovely on the feet here. You can wiggle the toes here. See how that feels. Beautiful. Lovely. So from here, we can then find our way back down onto the mat, onto our backs even. So coming down like this, legs, knees up into the chest, give yourself a bit of a rock on the back, and then we can just bring the arms out at shoulder height, dropping the legs down to one side, looking over the other, and breathing here. Lovely. Just this is gentle, don't do anything that feels too much. And then bringing the legs back up, going over to the other side, supine twist. Lovely way to finish the practice. Just a little counter pose. And then we're going to raise the knees back up, bringing the arms down by the sides, taking the feet out long along the mat. And dropping down into Shavasana. So it may have been through the practice that you felt these three energies, these energies of lightness, of passion and steadiness, and of dullness. Maybe you also were able to tune into the divine self within, which is the thing that we were tuning into last week, that can help you to work with these three energies so that you can make your way through life in a beautiful, contented way. So stay here as long as you like. Namaste.